Welcome back to stage 2 of the former mystery build. Moving forward, the Valkyrie C10 6x6. So last time we got this guy to where you see it now, this rolling chassis. Got a front axle installed in the rear. Set this up for 4-wheel steer. We got in that tiny brushless mofo RC motor. And that's about where we left it here, sitting on the wheels. So since then I've progressed the cab a little, got some detail on there with some stickers, got the grille back in, basically prepped it for the rest of the assembly of this kit so we can get that actually mounted up to the chassis, get these scale accessories on there that I painted up. I've also got a cyclical switch here from Club 5. That's going to pair up with these LEDs from Evan Design. So we're going to try to get some LEDs on the bumper, headlights. I've got some mirrors here as well. Interior we're going to have to modify, and the fenders to fit with this kit. I got these aluminum servo posts in, so we'll put some of those in the rear. Got some detail with those stiff skids, some more wheel weights if needed. And the big ticket item is the FuriTech Lizard Pro. So finally got an ESC for this to pair with the FSBS6. So we'll set that up with the FlySky system. So we'll have the 4-wheel steer, crawl modes. So that's basically what stage 2 is going to entail. So I think we're going to just jump right in and see if we can't get this cab kit fitted up and mounted and prepped for magnets. Well, there's some progress. That looks like a nice assembly. So that kit is all together, and I test fit that on the chassis. Kind of had to adjust these front posts a little bit side to side and inward to get them to everything to sit even. I got the bumper mount on the front. The only issue I had was these posts on the bumper mount, these little blocks. I had to take about 1 millimeter off the end so the whole bumper mount could slide in far enough for that peg to go in the hole. But just a 2-second X-Acto shaving there, really easy. And then you can see I've got my fenders out, and I've got my driver's side trimmed up. I did the same as the Valkyrie on the rear, cut them right in front of the 2 screw holes, and then I left the little transitional piece. And then the front I had to do a little different. I had to cut out that wheel well to clearance for the multiple shock hole positions and the fact that that shock is leaning. So that's a little different than the OEM. So now I'm going to cut this passenger side up to match, get those mounted, and then I ought to be able to do the matching pair of magnets on the chassis side. And those will sit right behind the peg on the horizontal. So then 2 of those magnets stacked equal out to the height of that little washer basically. So you don't end up raising the nose of the truck at all. So that's really nice. I like these little tiny magnets. They're super thin. I can post a link to where I get those, but those are super useful on these SCX24s. So that's the progress there. I'm going to try to get those fenders in and get the other magnet on, and between doing that I may go ahead and trim up and get this interior prepped for paint as well. And that will basically leave us the electronics to go. Got these fenders both on. Had to do a little more fitment here because these Valkyrie frame rails are thicker. It pushes both of these fenders out just a little, so I had to take the Dremel cutoff wheel and just sand off like a 0.5 millimeter on each side, and then the shell could close easily, or it was trying to push the fenders out and you kind of had to compress it. So that solved all the fitment issues there. So now I did chop this up. You can see I took some chunks out of the bench seat to allow for those 3 mount points on the Valkyrie kit. and I just primed and painted it, and then I'll come back and do some detailing. So while that's drying, I've decided to pull this back servo and get these aluminum mounts on, so you can see it next to the plastic, and I've got one on now, so they're quite a bit thinner and obviously a lot stronger. And then you can see they're offset, so you can actually reverse them, and you can actually move the servo a little side to side if you need to help center. So I'm going to get the other one on and kind of see where it sits, but I really like these. They're getting smaller, shorter, more rounded. So that's just going to help with this frame clearance. But setting the servo on there, of course, I'm still going to have to trim these top ears down, so I can basically get it mounted up and kind of look at the back there and see what I need to chop off that's above. So that's next on the docket, and we'll finish getting this painted up and get the magnet glued in, get the mirrors on, and there's just a few more little things and the LEDs, and this thing will almost be ready here. Okay, you can see I've got the servo ears trimmed up flush to basically match the servo mount blocks behind them. So I've got it all back installed again, and beforehand, if one side was fully compressed up and then you swung the other side up, it would hit the frame. So that has basically been alleviated. Alright, with two hands I can do this a little better. So if one side was up, this side would hit the frame pretty bad. You can see it's still just barely tagging it, but at least it can kind of roll off, and it's pretty minimal. And then this side I think is pretty much clear now because a little bit of asymmetry. I mean, it could hit, but just the way they're rounded now, everything would slide off easily. It's definitely a lot more clearance in there than it had with the big full servo ears and the big mount blocks. So that should allow for little to no hang-ups, and definitely stronger mount points since they're aluminum. So that's the servo horns check. So I guess I'm going to get back to the interior. Alright, so I've got the interior finished up. Got that all painted and detailed here. I wasn't planning on the gray steering wheel, but I ran out of my dark yellow spray paint, so that was a fallback. I think it looks pretty good in there with the gray. So that's ready to go in, and then these mirrors are going to go on next, because the little through bolts actually will come in under the side of this tray and kind of help hold it up. And then we'll have to tape the back and the front on this one because there's no lip on the back to hold it anymore. I did go ahead and double side on one of these since it's just that trio diff cover. It doesn't have any screw holes, and I don't know that these little braces will fit the bulky diff covers. I know these fit like stock, but I usually just double side them on there. So that's on, the magnets are in, all the accessories are glued on. Let's see if I can get this open. There we go. So that is prepped and ready. So I've got the electronics laid out, and I got this lizard out, this Pro, to look at. So you can see here, I don't know if it's any smaller than the other lizard. It might be. I don't think that would matter much. The big difference is you get a direct plug-in for the motor. And then here's your ESC lead and your battery lead. So I'll be switching this out here. You can just unplug it. So you could plug the battery directly to this. This is basically an extension, or you can plug in your own conversion. So since I'm running 3S, I'll have a different plug And then they actually give you a longer ESC extension if needed, because this one is like maybe 2 inches. It's pretty short. Only thing is, if you switch it out, you end up having to cut the shrink wrap to get this one off, which kind of stinks. It'd be nice if this was kind of on the end, like the battery. But, and then you get the Bluetooth dongle here to get it all adjusted with the app. So that's all ready to go. And then the receiver. So I've been kind of scouting locations, and this is set up for like the stock ESC to sit in this back tray. But there's not a lot of height there, and this thing sideways is fairly tall. So I don't think it's going to work here. Of course, it can't sit this way. The plugs are going to stick up even further. So it's probably going to go on the sides like typical. And then I'm debating where this guy goes, and then I've got the little Club 5 switch. So I think I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of the body details on, and then get these base electronics in, get everything kind of wired in, and then I think that'll prep for the LEDs. Alright, I'm working on this interior fitment, and one little note here, I forgot on these C10s, the mirrors sit a little bit higher than the JLU, so they don't just slip right under the tray. So I looked at my other Valkyrie, and I had notched the sides here where there's bolts, and there's a little nut there. So I've kind of got them unthreaded, so I can drop it in flat, and then I'll tape the front and rear, and then I'll thread those screws through, and they'll kind of pinch the sides. But almost there. It's looking good. Got my reference truck out just to have quick views of the mirrors. So anyways, moving right along. Okay, got it all situated and taped in. Got these bolts threaded back in. So that all situated nicely. Looks really nice in there. Let's get it on the truck. Gonna get a mock-up here. Looks pretty good. So we are on to the electronics. We can get this thing rolling. Little update here. Some bad news. The 3S battery won't fit here. This guy is about double thickness of the stock battery. So you can see this is slid down to the motor case, and so if you go thicker, you're pushing this upwards, and you get up too high and the body won't close. So what I'm going to do is set it up for 2S and 3S. So 2S is going to be the LCG tray up here with the stock battery, and then I'm going to leave this slot open, and this is going to be the 3S battery position right there. So I'm going to set the receiver in here, and then the ESC right on top of it, and then I've got my Club 5 switch over here, and that's routing kind of under the battery tray. It comes out here. So those will come out, and all the plugs will go into that receiver kind of right here above this area right there in that zone. So that's the plan. So I'm going to go ahead. I think this should work. I've kind of been playing with it in multiple configurations, but those batteries are really the driving factor. And part of that is you use 2 screws to screw this tray down, and you can see that gap. So the battery doesn't sit flush on the tray any longer, so you're losing another 2 millimeters there. So with this tray right here, you're really limited. You can see where the hood would sit. I mean, it's just right there at that battery top corner. So but I think this is going to be fine. I'm just going to lose the forward bias weight when I'm running 3S. It's going to be all back here. So you know, trade-offs, but we can get this thing going. Well, a little good news update to follow that. My Amazon order just arrived, so I've got my little converter cables to actually be able to run these 3S batteries. So it's got the little battery cable connection and then it's got this guy. So from Fury Tech, I believe one of these is $7, and on Amazon this whole pack of 6 was like $7 or $8. So really good value there. Oh, the frustration. Fitment issues. So I had everything in, and then the hood would not fully close, and this magnet wouldn't seat. Could not get the Velcro strap in there, because with that coming through the bottom, it wants to shift the battery up a little bit. I also ended up flipping the battery tray. That way I could get those screws to actually recess into the slots that are kind of under the battery tray. So let me pull this battery out. So I'm just going to use rubber bands here to secure it. So you can see the screws now kind of recess down into those slots. So then the battery can sit flush, and then it can slide all the way down because there's no Velcro strap that's going to be coming out of here. So it can actually slide further down. And then these tabs on the end flipped work well to just wrap the rubber band. So now everything is flush and down. So the hood is now closing. So now I'm going to try again with the electronics right here stacked up. I thought those were what was hitting before and wouldn't allow it to close, but on further, troubleshooting, it ended up being this battery. So this is not as easy as I thought. It looked like it was all going to work, and then now I've been messing with it for at least an hour or two, playing with positions and fitment and trying to decase the receiver, and coming back to this conclusion of just redoing this battery tray to get that to work a little better. But it looks like a little progress here. I feel like now it's going to be a straight shot. All right, back with some progress. Got all the electronics buttoned up, finally in there and fitted. So I've got the 3S battery running right now. This thing is too cool. So, ran it on 2S, and I've got the 3S battery in there now. And I've got a little issue here. I'll show you. And it only occurs at like super high end on 3S. So I can hold it here. See that? It starts to like skip or something. I'm not sure what's happening. But it doesn't do that on 2S. It never gets, you can't get to that high of a speed, I guess, on 2S. So even when you max throttle, there's no issue on 2S. So I'm not sure what the deal is. We'll pull this open and take a look at it. All right, I've got the 3S pulled out here, and I just have the 2S sitting in here. So everything kind of tucks away. You can actually have both batteries in there at the same time. So after running it on 3S, this little motor was pretty dang hot. It's still warm. So I'm not sure what was happening with that skipping or some gear slippage or something. I don't know. Very hard to tell, even like looking at the motor with the shell open while it's running. So I'll plug in the 2S here and we'll take a look at it, and I'll show you how it doesn't do it on 2S. Alright, let's get this thing plugged up. So it's just this easy. I was surprised once I got this in how easy it fits in. Of course I don't have the bumper lights in, but one thing I did on this final install was I basically took out this double side that was under the receiver and just put a little bit in the recess. So you can see on this opposite side there's a recess kind of on each side there. So I just put the double-sided in that recess, so it basically sits flush with the floor. It still grabs enough of that receiver to hold it down. And then you can see on the underside of the Pro, I kind of did the same. There's kind of some protrusions over here, so that kind of levels it. And I think just that much brought it down about 1.5 millimeters. So now the lid will close easily. So let's get it turned on. And having that little switch right there is very nice. So now we're on, and this is 2S. I love watching this thing articulate. So that's full throttle. So none of that stutter. So that's only on 3S, so I'm not sure. I'd be interested to know if anybody has run into something similar. Maybe this motor just isn't rated for 3S. It's a bummer because the CSC is. So and right now I don't have the BEC turned up to the higher setting. I believe it's on 5 volts versus maybe 6 is the upper, 6 something. Again, these are both the black label servos, so I'm going to contact Nick at Mofo RC and see what they're rated at, because there's no specs with these, so I don't want to burn them out. Anyways, very happy so far. I got both of those servos adjusted, the endpoints, trimmed them up, and of course I've got my crawl mode here. So if you're not familiar, I've got this FlySky GT5 radio. So you just basically plug your rear servo into your 3rd channel, and then on the controller here there's a crawl mode. So you can just cycle to this crawl mode, and that's what I'm in currently, and I'm in mode D. So I can back this off like C. Now I'm in crab crawl, which is kind of odd since I've got a straight axle that's not turning. But you can just basically, you know, click this and cycle through this. So this is rear only, which again is not super helpful with this long rig. So I could just go to front wheel. So let's just see the difference here. Pop it back to 4-wheel. Wow. The longest SCX24 I have, but it may be the tightest turning. Wow. So that's the 4-wheel steer setup here with the FlySky. Super easy. Channel 3, crawl mode. You're good to go. So I guess what's left here is the bumper lights and LEDs.